and welcome to the first episode of Professional Publishing Finland's podcast, The Author's Voice. Professional Publishing is based in Helsinki and publishes nonfiction books in the areas of management and leadership, education, and sustainable development. At the Author's Voice podcast, we hear from the author their thoughts and insights on the creation of their book. My name is Mary Boss, and I am your host. I am so excited to have Anne Raudaskoski here with me today. Anne is a strategist and author. Her business is called Regenerous Unlimited. Today we will be discussing her book, Circular Strategies for Success. It was published earlier this year, 2025. Her book lays out a framework to help businesses transform their operations to circularity. Thank you for joining me, Anne.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have you here. Congratulations on your book. Can you tell me a little bit about what led you to write the book? What inspired you?
Yes. Writing a book was my long-term dream. And I've been developing this circular design framework that is presented in the book already in 2016, like since then. I've been iterating through circular design sprints, which are kind of very concise business development programs, and also through different client projects over the years. And then over the years, also the market environment has been changing. So the EU really wants to be a climate neutral circular economy market area.
Yes.
So there are lots of changes going on, and in order for businesses to stay competitive, and given that the EU wants us to transition from linear to circular, they need to know about circularity.
Yeah.
And over the years, when I was running these sprints and working with clients, I realized that there's still kind of a lack of know-how. First of all, there's a lack of know-how that how the market environment is really changing. Like there's a train of legislation coming from the EU. Mm-hmm. And the EU Green Deal that was created in 2020 is like an umbrella term for all these different legislative initiatives that is coming out from the EU. So I saw that there's a need to understand, on one hand, how the market environment is changing, but then on the other hand, that, okay, what does circular economy in its entire complexity as a new economic and operating model, what does it really mean? And not just the kind of the big picture and those fundamentals of circularity, but more, what does it mean to a particular business?
Yeah.
So given the iteration of the framework, the circular design framework, which covers three corners and three kind of different aspects of business. So one corner is about business level decisions. So it's about the company's strategy, it's about the value chain, how to develop it from that one-way street into a circular, and it's about business models. And then the next corner is about how do you actually design your product, whatever it be, whether it be the table or mobile phone or a car. How do you implement those circular product design strategies into your research and development process? And then the third corner is about the customer experience. So how do you rethink the role of the customer? I mean, in the linear economy, we're kind of used to thinking the customer as a buyer.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Right.
But the customer can also be a caretaker or user of the product, someone who passes on the product after it's reached its first life cycle in their use. And I realized, in addition to kind of that lack of know-how about the changing market environment, that many companies kind of like chose one aspect of circularity to test it out at the company.
Yeah.
So they might, let's say that they piloted with the business model, circular business model, or they piloted something about their product design. And sometimes it kind of failed. And my kind of thesis and what the book says is that you really need to have the holistic approach.
Right.
So covering all those different business, product, and customer, and iterate between those three corners.
Right.
And the kind of create like a very strong strategy. So I wanted to offer something that, hey, this is a very holistic, it's a systematic approach. And I call it like a compass to a company, because of course, every path or every company's path to circularity is unique. But there are some fundamentals that you need to take into account. So I'm going through those different aspects and those fundamentals in my book to order a very systematic approach.
Yeah. Okay.
So that companies can use it as guidance, get inspiration, get inspiring case studies, stories, facts and figures, so that they can kind of navigate in that complex kind of environment of a circular economy.
Yeah, and that's so great to get the information out there in kind of a simplistic way that's easy for the business leaders to understand and make it seem like achievable.
Exactly.
And in the first part of your book, you talked a lot about worldview and how that shapes decisions and how these business leaders, their values and experiences kind of all contribute to how they run their business and the decisions that they make. And they often will have this moment of clarity, like an aha moment, something clicks and they're like realize that they could be doing something different or better and in a more environmentally friendly way. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. I really wanted to start with the kind of worldview part in the book before jumping into concrete solutions, because if nothing changes in our thinking, then kind of nothing or very little changes in our actions. And that's why I thought that it's so important to talk about the worldview and even recognize that we all have a worldview. And there's actually a short story in the first chapter. Would you want me to share it with you?
Yes, please.
It's actually a story by late American professor and writer David Foster Wallace. So there's these two young fish swimming along, and an older fish approaches them from the opposite direction, and he stops at them, nods, and says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water?" And continues on his way. And the two young fish, they continue swimming. And then eventually the other one turns at his friend and asks, "What the hell is water?" And to me, I think that this kind of encapsulates the very core of that. Sometimes we may not be even aware that we all have a worldview. We take it as an objective truth that, this is how the world is.
Yes.
But once you create that mental space to explore that, hey, I have a worldview, you have a worldview, it determines, it's kind of the core, like these core principles or set of values and beliefs about our lives, about our relationship with the rest of the world, with other human beings, with other living beings, how we do business, and what the kind of relationship with the kind of between business and nature is. So that's kind of behind all these business and design decisions. So once you start exploring that, hey, I A, have a worldview, B, I can reflect and explore it, and C, I might be able to, once I get new knowledge or something like you said, this aha moment, something nudges me, it might shape my worldview in a good way.
Yeah.
And there's some stories that some business leaders have had that eureka moment that, hey, I can't kind of look at the world in the old way anymore, because now that I understood something so profoundly that I can't go back. And I actually, one of my all-time favorites is the story of Ray Anderson.
Okay.
And he's the late founder of Interface, a carpet manufacturing company, the US carpet manufacturing company. And he was a capitalist through and through.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he had set his carpet manufacturing company to make money, loads of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, full stop. That's what companies do.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And this was in 1994 when one of his employees asked Ray that, what's our environmental policy? And that one single question shook Ray's worldview.
Yeah.
And he didn't have an answer. He tried to whisper to his HR director that, do we have an environmental policy in this company?
Yeah.
And, you know, of course they were following the laws and regulations, but it wasn't quite enough. And that one single question was something that Ray could not get rid of.
Okay.
So he kept thinking about it. He couldn't sleep next night. And then eventually he realized that I want to change the course of our business. I want us to do things differently from now on.
Yeah.
And we are actually part of the nature. And in a very kind of simplistic way, every business leader can think that, okay, there are these two circles.
Yeah.
And either we can contribute to the health of natural ecosystems, or we can slowly degrade them and destroy them.
Yeah.
Kind of at the end of the day, that's how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can choose your path. And after the employee asked Ray that question, Ray decided that, you know, we want to be part of this circle that creates a positive impact.
Started making a change. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the start of the Mission Zero program, which basically said that by 2020, Interface will not have any negative impact on the environment. I mean, that's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Given that this was 1994.
Yeah, very bold.
And just to wrap up, nobody in the company had no clue whatsoever how to reach that goal. I mean, it was unheard of.
Yeah.
How do you eliminate all negative impacts? Like, you know, that was part of the business talk. Neither it was part of the R&D talk.
Okay.
And even the R&D director said, when Ray said to him that, you know, I want us to start using recycled materials. And the R&D director said that we can't, it's impossible. And then Ray replied to him that, oh, I think we can, because nature is already doing it. So I'm sure that, you know, you guys can figure it out.
Yes.
So what I want to say with all this is that, first of all, that one person can change and not your worldview.
Yeah.
Open up entirely new horizon.
Yeah.
But also how important creating such a moonshot vision like Ray created, that Mission Zero, is for company leaders. Because when you don't know how to reach your goals, you actually create a marvelous space for innovation, because everybody needs to challenge themselves and everybody needs to think that, okay, how do we reach, what do we need to change, what do we need to learn in order to reach that goal.
Yeah. Okay.
So the history of Interface is full of innovations.
Yeah.
And that's
really cool.
something, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. What a good example. And just, you know, it's just something that kind of clicks, and then you have to step back and look at everything as a whole and see how can we make things better.
Yes.
Like that's so great. Yeah.
Exactly. You're right on spot on with that, because that's exactly what you need to do. That kind of, you step back, see what's going on in your business operations, in your entire value chain.
Yeah.
And kind of reflect that, okay, how are we part of this bigger system called the world?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. That's great. Thanks. Like these stories, your book is just full of these great case stories. It really allows the readers to understand how things have worked for others, and makes it more relatable and more achievable. One that I particularly liked was about yerba mate drink, and use it as an example of a feedback loop. Could you tell us about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's take a few steps back first.
Yeah.
So there's a chapter where I introduce futures and systems thinking.
Yes.
Because I think they're very useful tools and ways to think to any business leader. They're actually fundamental. So I just very briefly browsed through that. What are the kind of core concepts of those, what I call like twin sisters of thinking?
Okay.
And one of the core concepts in systems thinking is the feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, apart from recommending my own book, obviously, I think that the book Thinking in Systems, a primer by Donella Meadows, the late Donella Meadows, I'm an absolute fan of hers.
Okay.
I mean, the book is brilliant. I mean, yeah, the way she explains the fundamentals of systems thinking is just awesome. But so the feedback loop, we can also call it like a design feedback in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of feedback on the way that we have designed our systems. But let me just clarify it a bit because it's still a bit hazy. So the yerba mate example is an example of positive feedback loop.
Yes.
And basically, the idea behind positive or any kind of feedback loop, whether it's positive or negative, is that there's always consequences
to
our actions. So everything that we do, there are consequences. Either they are positive or they are negative.
Yeah.
And yerba mate is a really inspiring company. So it's a US based company, but they operate in Latin America. And those guys who set up the company decided that we want to become a regenerative company in the long run.
Yeah.
And they're really serious about it. I mean, they have really solid strategy and a really kind of holistic approach to what does regeneration actually mean. So how do you maximize your positive impact?
Okay.
Not just closing the loops of a circular economy, but how do you actually regenerate and improve the health of the natural ecosystems?
Yeah.
So in their case, obviously they need this mate, which is the primary raw material
Mm-hmm.
for their drinks.
Yes.
And you can cultivate it, grow it in many different ways. But they decided, according to their goal to become regenerative, that we want our supply chain use regenerative agricultural practices.
Yes.
So what does it mean in practice? It means that they have all these farmers who supply to them, and they have these basically like procurement criteria or supply chain or supplier criteria that, hey, we want you to start using regenerative practices. So regenerative practice, what it essentially do, it improves the health of topsoil, which is crucially important to be able to continue cultivating and growing food.
Yeah.
Or mate in this case. And it also sequesters carbon. So in many different ways, it kind of improves the health of the very foundation of the soil or the topsoil, which is also kind of foundation for your business because that's the raw material that you need for your company.
Yeah.
So they set up this criteria that we want you to start using regenerative farming practices. And the feedback loop is about those that growing number of farmers transitioning from kind of traditional farming practices into regenerative ones.
Yeah.
Means that there are always new farmers who use those practices, improve the health of the soil, sequester carbon instead of creating emissions.
Yeah.
And the more the company grows, the more suppliers they need.
Yeah.
And the more and bigger portion of those farmers start using those good regenerative farming practices.
Yeah.
So that's like a positive feedback loop that they're creating. And in that case, because there's a lot of discussion, we won't go into that, but a lot of discussion about degrowth and, companies, should not only seek growth. But in this instance, because you've set that, ambitious goal, then the growth of the company creates a positive domino effect across the value chain. And of course, all those farmers get their livelihoods, and so on and so forth. And they strengthen the local communities. And instead of intoxicating the land where they live on and grow food and mate, they improve the health of it. So that's a very long explanation.
Yeah. No, that was great.
And that's a positive feedback.
Yeah. And that story is so great. And it's such a good example of how like good practices kind of promote good practices elsewhere as well, because the vendors or clients or whoever else wants that business, so then they are going to change their practices, and like good makes more good in the world.
Indeed.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
what a cool story. Thanks. Well, yeah, I think it's about time to wrap it up, and thank you so much for being here. This was so interesting, really great to hear about the beginning of your book. And Circular Strategies for Success is available for sale on the Professional Publishing website. It's available as hard copy or ebook. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Author's Voice. We'll see you next time.